So we're at the very southern tip of the Blackland Prairie in Texas. So the Blackland Prairie kind of goes up towards College Station and loops around the east side of San Antonio and Schulenburg, Hallettsville, all out there. And then we are literally, like when you look at the 9 ecosystems in Texas, we're the very, very southern tip of that Blackland Prairie, comes around here to the south side of San Antonio. And so we're 10 miles from the hill country and 30 minutes out of downtown San Antonio here. But it's the Blackland Prairie is the ecosystem that it is. And I always tell people, like, you hear a lot of stories about where people say, I bought the worst piece of ground I could possibly find and I regenerated it. I bought the best soil that I could possibly afford. So this was good soil to begin with. It wasn't, it wasn't growing a lot of plants, but it had a good structure. We've got deep black soil here. That's not like you go a mile away and you get into real heavy, that Victoria clay. Mm-hmm. This is an Amphion soil, which is got a lot of sand, or got sand and clay. It's a nice mix. So it's not a real sticky gumbo like you can get. So it was a good beginning. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I kind of brag on the place, but it's not, I've never had an original thought in farming, all of this I stole from someone else, but when we finally got to all 5 principles, and the hot wire definitely helps, I've always said the hot wire, really understanding the hot wire was kind of like the 5th ring of soil health. You know what I mean? Like that was what it really took to get it as good as it can be. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's what I like to show is if you look at the drought map. So Medina County is still the purple bullseye for extreme drought. So if that's extreme drought, you know what I mean? Like we can handle that. You know what I mean? We never, this year we've gotten average rain, meaning 12 inches in the last 6 months. But historically, we're still in the historic drought. We're still way, way under the average. So. The one we really love is like you said, it's everywhere, is this burr medic. So this is that's a native Texas cool season legume, and it's either called burr clover or burr medic, and we got a really good stand of that one year, and I've really been farming it ever since. So I was telling Aaron, we always make sure that we don't overgraze that when it's going to seed in the springtime. We always leave a seed, and you can find, like, there's 5 seeds in that handful right there. It creates a lot of seed. I've never been able to plant it somewhere and have it work. So you can buy this seed, and I kind of think they've almost stopped selling it because nobody had any success in planting it. But if you get a little patch of it, just farm it. I'm kind of a row cropper at heart, and I always say, like, we really need to be row cropping like farming our pastures a lot more than we need to be ranching our pastures. That's what I can't stand, the farmer versus rancher debate, because you have to be a farmer to be a rancher. Or you'll go broke buying feed, But so we'll also plant cover crops in here every year. We'll do Austrian winter peas, triticale, common vetch, which that common vetch kind of looks like mesquite. I kind of thought that might have been some right there. Common veg, Austrian winter peas, triticale, and forage collards. We do that, and we do a mix of that in the fall. And we have to wait until all of this goes dormant. So if you have bare soil, or maybe like where we're going to go next, we've got a warm season annual cover crop on it, and we don't have a real heavy stand of perennial grasses on it. So we'll plant that now in a cool season crop. But we don't plant this in a cool season crop until about November, when all of this goes dormant.
In a probably 10 by 10 square here, I'm going to be hard pressed to find a seed head.
Yeah, I really think as we've built the soil, and we've built the soil with no-till cover crops, your hot wire, the proper integration of livestock, all of those 5 tenets of regenerative ag. As we've built the soil, I've noticed that these warm season perennials, they stay leafier longer, and I don't know why. I'd love to know scientifically why this stays vegetative and green longer than when it's growing in fields that are struggling for their soil health. You know what I mean? Because this very same field, this very same grass, before we had done everything correctly, it all popped to seed real quick. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was real stemmy grass. It wasn't real leafy grass like this. So I don't know. I guess because it's not struggling. I guess that's what a scientist would tell you. It's not struggling, so it's not trying to reproduce itself. You know, it's healthy and happy, and so it doesn't think it needs to shoot up a seed head. Is I bet what's
storing all those carbohydrates in the root systems.
Yeah,
and that's what it's focused on doing. Yeah. It's beautiful.
It just gets thicker every year. You know, and I can't believe what the part I love the most. Like, we haven't K-lined this entire summer, you know, and we certainly haven't gotten any excessive rains, you know, but it just grows heavier year over year. So on all of the bare spots, so like here's one here, the livestock shelter that the hay is under. So that's a portable livestock shelter that the one thing about cell grazing, the way we do it, where we hold them high density on a small area, is a lot of times you won't have shade there. So we have to create the shade for them with the livestock shelters. But that's really awesome, because what that does is you put that livestock shelter on your worst patch in that cell, you know, and they'll all congregate there, either to get out of the northern wind in the wintertime or to get out of the summer sun in the summertime. But wherever they congregate is where it turns it into your best piece of ground. And so like you'll see, I can look around and see like where these patches that are bigger, you know, like the livestock shelter was right here. So it's even bigger, you know.
That's awesome.
But it's also amazing to me how if you have a tree in your pasture and you're just doing set stock grazing and they're always laying under that tree, they create a caustic environment under that tree.
Yep.
But when the man, or woman for that matter, when the human is inserted properly into the system and moving those loafing areas, it creates better pasture. You know what I mean? But it's all about man being inserted into that system. When you just leave them be in a great big pasture, they're going to congregate in a corner or congregate under a shade tree and kill that area. You know, but when we move that shade around for them, it creates more life. Like, look how heavy that is. And that's what we love. Like, you see the cattle, like, that's a real critical part to the growing good beef, is you see them eat big mouthfuls of grass. They stand in one spot and eat big mouthfuls of plants, you know. They don't have to hunt and pick and walk and, you know, burn calories, compact the soil, walk, nibble. You know, they just stand in one place and get a belly full, you know, like that. See, the livestock shelter was there and there.
Yep. And this would have been where a K-line was? This line right here, maybe?
That line? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, it might have been. That's interesting. Must have been the K-line hose. It's funny how you see little changes like that.
Yeah.
Because there was never a fence here.
Right?
Oh, the K-line's in it.
Oh, the K.
Now why is that? Like, that's not leaking. Know. That's not leaking.
No.
It's just heavier where the K-line hose is.
I don't know if it's a shade thing or.
Is that hose holding the moisture under it?
Either moisture or cool. Because what you're doing is you're running that cold water through there. And so
I guess I haven't even run it in a couple months. That's probably dry.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why
it's got to be holding the moisture underneath it.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, because you can see it curving right there. And then it curves right into the vegetables where we had vegetables.
That's awesome.
I've never noticed that.
That's really cool.
Look how much heavier it is.
Oh, dude, I'm up to my knees in just leafy grass.
Yeah. We saw a little mesquite sprig a minute ago, but I was telling Aaron, when the mesquite has to compete with this thick grass, it's leafy as well, leafy and young. And so the cattle will nip the top of it, and it's not shooting up a spiky stem either. When it does kind of get away from us like that, when it gets big enough to where the cattle won't just devour it, we just cut it with a weed eater and with a saw blade on it. And it's super easy. Those weed eaters with the saw blade is like the best thing ever for controlling the mesquite. We just leave it, of course, like when, you just cut it and leave it be and let it rot down, and it'll rot away in 6 weeks usually.
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of times we're taught that if you just top kill or cut a mesquite, the root system and everything will continue to grow. But what you're saying is that you have so much microbial life and action in your healthy soil that it's actually attacking that.
Seems like it.
And breaking down that root and that stem.
Totally. I wish everybody would do this instead of spraying their mesquite. I just hate to see, I don't know what the official, take on that is. I know that there's some, like Noble probably, talks a little bit about spraying mesquite and stuff, but I just think you can control it mechanically and with animals and with hot wire all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I just hate to see, any of these good grazers, and I mean that sincerely, like they're genuinely good grazers. I just hate to see them even just dabbing the mesquite. They talk about just touching it and this and that. Like, just leave it, like any poison's bad poison. If you ask me, it's only a last resort. I'll tell you that, you know what I mean? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like it's only a last resort. And it's so much easier to just cut it by hand and then graze it and keep the grass competing against it. I always say I can solve every problem I feel like with a plant, I can always fight a plant with a plant. You've just got to get 90 days in front of it. You know what I mean? So like when this mesquite is wanting to really, really grow heavy in July, when it's super hot, well, you need to have cover on it over the top of it. You know what I mean? So 90 days before that mesquite is doing its thing, you need to have put something else in there that will compete against it. You know what I mean? And it's always like a 90 or 120 day cycle, it seems like. I never worry about today. You always got to, what are we going to need in 90 days, And like right now, it's going to be frosting in 90 days. And we need to think about, what are we going to be grazing when it's frosting, and when all of this warm season perennials is going dormant. And so that's why we start planning our cool seasons right now. When you're not at all thinking about anything cool season, it's still going to be 100 degrees today, but we'll be planting those cool seasons next week, so that in 90 days, it's green and growing. But you can always fight a plant with a plant, I think,